Hello, everyone. This is Howard Fox, and welcome back for another episode of the Outdoor Adventure Series, the podcast that celebrates individuals and families, businesses, and organizations that seek out and promote the exploration, stewardship, conservation, access, and enjoyment of the outdoors. Erika Ebsworth-Goold is our guest today. Erika is a freelance travel writer, and her works have been published in such notable publications as Travel and Leisure, Fodor's, Well and Good, and the New Zealand Herald, just to name a few. And I have to say, I'm excited about this because she's writing about some fantastic places, and I'm interested to hear her story. So Erika, welcome to the Outdoor Adventure Series.
Hey, Howard. Thanks so much for having me with you today.
Fantastic. So first off, it doesn't look like you're on a cruise ship or some exotic location today. Where are you located?
I'm not. I'm here at home in lovely St. Louis, Missouri, where it's going to be about 100 degrees in the shade today. Uh, yeah, good times.
100 degree. Wow. I'm in Las Vegas. I think we're going to be 108, so we're not going to be too far off. Okay.
Oof. Oof. Yeah, I'm currently at home, cooling my jets before my next adventure. I'm actually heading out to Paris next month with my son, who is graduating from high school, and it's sort of our mom-son last hurrah before he heads off to college in the fall.
Oh my. So, I mean, a mom and a son trip. That sounds pretty interesting. And I imagine, just given your background, he probably has seen a lot of pretty cool places.
We've been really fortunate enough to have him come along with us to a lot of fun spots. The child's extremely well traveled, and I hope that that continues into the future. But really excited to go to Paris with him next month.
Very nice. Well, definitely, I'm sure you will have a fantastic time. Good food, good wine, the sights, the art, cannot go wrong. So, Erica, w- tell us, what is the life of a freelance travel writer? How did you get into this work?
So my pathway into this line of work was very circuitous. It was interesting. It's never a straight line, right? The best
It
stories
never
never
is.
are. A dear friend of mine that I went to journalism school with many moons ago was the editor in chief of a site called Travel Awaits, online travel site targeting travelers 50 plus. I had been to Mumbai, India, on a recent business trip for my day job,
Mhm.
and my girlfriend hit me up and said, "We could really use some India content. Would you be willing to write about your time in Mumbai?" And I said, "Oh, sure, of course." And that was the beginning. So I wrote for Travel Awaits for about 5 years. And then I'd say about 2 years ago, you know what? It was funny, Howard. I graduated from graduate school. I got my
Mm.
my MA and thought, okay, what's the next big thing? What am I going to leap into? And I thought, let's see about sort of expanding my base a little bit and expanding my bylines. And so I did. I just started reaching out to editors all over the place, and I've been fortunate to work with a lot of really, really great outlets. And I've been able to tell some amazing stories and go to some really fantastic places, some far-flung places I never would have thought I'd go to. This girl from Missouri, I've been everywhere, and I'm so fortunate and full of gratitude that I have been.
So I have to ask, how many additional pages have been added to your passport? I mean, because I know you run out of stamps on pages. So,
I've
uh,
had to go back once for additional pages.
okay.
And I do have my previous passport because it does have a 10-year Chinese visa in it, and I'm not gonna let that one go.
That's pretty special. Now, you mentioned a day job. Is it okay to share what your day job is?
Of course. So I also work at Washington University here in St. Louis, in their communications office.
Okay. Now, before we started the episode and turned on the record, I had mentioned some friends of mine live in St. Louis, and that's where their daughter went to university. Was at Washington University, and so who knows? Maybe they took one of your classes. You never know.
It's such an incredible university. I am privileged to work there, and they have been wonderful, letting me sort of travel the world.
So, how does so you had this fortuitous occurrence of being going to Mumbai and for work, and you've had a friend that is who is editor at Travel Awaits. How do you do your research when it comes to going to a location, an exotic location, or even a location in another state? What kind of research goes in so that you're prepared to gather data and information and then begin to before you put the pen to the paper, so to speak?
Such a great question. I am a type A personality to a T. And so I do a lot of research before I head off to a certain place. For instance, I'm a member of the Adventure Travel Trade Association. I'm a media delegate with them. It's a great organization. And last summer, I went to Colombia with them. I ended up flying into Bogota and then flying into a small city called Pitalito in the southwestern part of the country, really far flung, not a whole lot of people go there. And I started really taking a look at the itinerary, where we were going to be going, and then kind of digging in a little bit on the specific sites, right? And started uncovering really great story angles that I didn't think anyone else would have and that I would take back to my editors, and it really placed a lot of great stories out of Colombia. But doing the research beforehand and figuring out the stories and the people you want to talk to before you hit the ground is really important as a freelance journalist.
Hmm. So when you are going to a location, to the cities in Colombia, and you're doing your research, are you actually reaching out to the local business, the restaurant, the tour guides, and making arrangements before you actually get there?
I do a little bit of pre-research. If there's something that really stands out, for instance, I placed a story with Fodors about a UNESCO World Heritage Site in Colombia called San Agustin. It's
Hmm.
our archaeological park. It's in a really remote area of the country, and it's absolutely stunning. You've got hundreds of icons and statues that were crafted by people hundreds of years ago who are
Hmm.
now no longer in the area. They don't know a whole lot about the indigenous people who crafted these amazing stones. They
Hmm.
think that they were used as grave markers and for other ceremonial sites, but not a whole lot's known about them. I
Hmm.
knew we were going to be visiting. I was super psyched, but I started doing some research and realized that while hundreds of the stones are there and it's now a protected UNESCO World Heritage Site, there
Hmm.
are about 35 of the stones that are actually missing from the site.
Oh,
That's
wow.
because they're at a museum in Germany because
Right.
they were stolen 100 years ago,
Oh, yeah.
right? And so you start doing the research and you start doing the digging. And I found an American expat living in Colombia now who has really led the charge to bring these stones back to San Agustin. And
Mm.
that became a really great story I put together for Fodors. Again, if you're just going at the itinerary and you're looking around thinking, "Oh, this is great." Well, that's one thing, and that's fine. That
Mhm.
might be a great write-up for a guidebook or for a listicle, fine, whatever. But
Mhm.
I'm as a former journalist, well, current former TV journalist and
Right.
now freelance journalist, I mean, I've just always been curious. I'm always going to dig and take the story a little bit deeper, and I'm so glad I did.
Very interesting. And when you are producing the output, the content for the article, are these long, in-depth articles? Are they a page with some photos? What does the end product typically look like? And maybe there is no such thing as typical in your line of work.
I don't think that there is. It's really, outlet dependent.
Okay.
So, some of the outlets that I work with, photos included, they'll be longer articles, interspersed with some photos. Other places will be short lists,
Mhm.
but I really try to give readers a sense of a place, a feel for a place, what they can
Mhm.
expect when they go there, and then hopefully some tips and tricks for when they are on the ground.
Okay. Now, a friend of mine, colleague from the Outdoor Writers Association of America, her name is Anitra Hamper, and maybe you know her, but she is a angling or fishing enthusiast, and we're not talking just trout in a stream. We're talking big monster arapaima and wolffish from Guyana. Okay,
Amazing.
and when she, as a former journalist, this is how she has reinvented herself, and so I'm curious, how has this reinvention from being a front of the camera journalist to using these skills, like you just said, you're not just doing the top 10 list, which I can do, and we'll talk about artificial intelligence or chat GBT in a second.
Oh,
But
do we have
how,
to?
yeah, sorry about that. That's my only tough question for you later. It'll be a softball. But how do you what does it really mean to get to the story beyond the story? Because so that people are going to say, wow, I never really knew that. And so
Yeah.
what's your process for going through that?
I wish I could tell you I have some magic secret formula. I don't. I'm just
Oy.
ridiculously curious. I'm ridiculously curious. I always have been. I was that annoying little kid who was always asking why, why,
Mhm.
why. And now, 50 years later, I'm still the same kid, just asking different sets of questions. So it's staying curious. It's observing something and saying, what's the reason behind this? What's the why? Who are the people
Mhm.
involved? What's their story?
Okay.
Right? It's about getting behind the story. And I love the idea of the reinvention of yourself. I think that you find a lot of freelance journalists who are in that same boat. I certainly am. And so I appreciate you sharing your friend's story. I think that if you have been trained as a journalist, that never
Mhm.
leaves you. This line of work is not for everyone. You have to be inherently curious, and
Okay.
I think that's what makes storytelling work.
I love that. And when you are in these locales, whether it's India, Colombia, and you're interviewing, are you somewhere? I have it. It's near me somewhere. It's the journal. Here it is. It's the journalist pad. For
Oh
our
my
listeners,
goodness.
I'm holding up a journalist notebook.
Uh-huh.
Is this what are you holding this? Are you doing the recording? Are you you've got a fantastic memory? You're going back to the hotel later to write it up. How do you go about capturing the content so that it does eventually become the story?
All of the above. So I absolutely record interviews that I do, and I lean in for help if I need it. And I've been fortunate that I've had on-site translators who are able to assist me if
Mhm.
language is a barrier. And I'm a big believer in leaning into tech. So Google Translate is definitely your friend when you're on the
Mhm.
road. But if I'm on the road, say in Colombia again, I was on a bus a lot of the time and just sort of taking general thoughts down as you're on the bus, jotting those down. So I do all of the above, Howard. I am a big believer in the power of the pen, quite literally.
Okay.
I love using my phone for those recordings and for translations. So all of it. And then usually at night, I'll get that laptop out and start sort of crafting things out. More noodling over story pitches and ideas first,
Mhm.
because that's what you want to work on. You want to figure out what stories are really going to resonate with the editors that you work with, because that's
Okay.
what gets the story sold.
Okay. And when you are in these locations, are you actually getting, down and dirty and chipping away at digging through dirt to find the artifact, or are you just standing back and kinda watching others do their craft, or there's a combination of the 2?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm Indiana Jones,
Okay.
but you know what? Especially when you're on a press trip and you're with a bunch
Mhm.
of other journalists, I kind of just let them do their thing. I don't need to
Mhm.
throw elbows or anything, but when I see a story, I know it, and I'll take my notes and go from there.
Okay. And when you're in let's just say an exotic, quote unquote, pampered location where
Uh-huh.
everything is being provided to you. How does that differ from, say, the Colombia or the India, or some other location where there's a lot of history going on here?
Mhm.
And so, how does that differ?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not going to tell you that I don't prefer to be pampered. I do. To me, I I don't particularly care for camping. My husband and my son are getting ready to haul off on a 2-week camping trip at Philmont Boy Scout Ranch in New Mexico,
Okay.
and that is on them. Have fun, boys. I can do it if necessary, but it's not something I prefer. I love the outdoors, but I would say I'm a late adopter.
Okay.
Here's what I'll explain. I'll explain that, because I am on the Outdoor Adventure podcast with you. I I think everyone needs to find their own place in the outdoors,
Hmm.
right? And so I love being out there. I love pushing myself to the extent I'm able. And when we talk about soft adventure, that's what I mean. Now that I am of a particular age, there
You
are
and me
things.
both, by the way.
Look, a couple of years ago, I was down in Curacao, right?
Okay.
And I had this beautiful, beautiful island tour, private island tour. We went everywhere. My guide took me to this cliffside seafood shack where we're going to go have lunch.
Mhm.
Stunning, overlooking the sea, right? And there are kids jumping off the cliff about 50 feet to the ocean below. And my guide was like, and I was in a swimming suit. He's like, "Do you want to give it a try?" And I went, "Yeah." Like 40 years ago, sure. But I'm a mom. I really don't think that's necessary for me anymore.
Hear ya.
And I don't need to go mountain biking in the middle of the forest down some cliff. I don't need to jump 60 feet into the ocean anymore. But there are things I really enjoy doing in nature. I love to hike. I love to kayak. I love to go snorkeling. But I don't need to like push myself to the extreme anymore. I'm over that.
Okay. I had just come back from a tour with On Cruise Adventures,
Mhm.
and I know we have a mutual friend that you had, been on a similar cruise with them down in Baja Sur, and so this was up in Alaska, and what I was interesting is that I wanted to podcast from the ship, and I was able to do it. Also, I wanted to go on the excursions, but I there was a couple of those where I had to remind myself, one, Howard, you are of a certain age
Uh-huh.
and you are of a certain shape. I sit at my desk a lot. That'll tell you what kind of shape I'm in sometimes. But it was nice. I found it's nice to push yourself, but then also know there's a limitation here, and I just need to be aware of that.
Absolutely, and especially in a place as remote as Baja California Sur or Alaska, where you might have been. The beauty of uncruise is that you get to go out in the middle of nowhere, right? And
Mhm.
that's great. But I don't need something to go wrong in the middle of nowhere. And so, am I going to tempt fate in a way that's ridiculous and irresponsible? No, maybe not so much anymore. That
Okay.
said, I loved being out there. I loved being remote. I loved the beauty of the nature and the landscape and seascape. And it was wonderful to be out there. It really,
Sure.
really was.
Now, when you go on your adventures, are you on your own? Are you taking your husband, occasionally your son with you, or are they like, okay, okay, guys, I'm gonna be gone for mommy's gonna be gone for 2 weeks, and I'll
Yeah.
see you 2 weeks, or do they
So
get to go?
it's a bit of everything. So my husband is also a journalist. He covers baseball.
Oh,
And
okay.
he's covered baseball for a long time,
Oh
and so
wow.
the team that he covers, he travels along with them.
Okay.
So, we've been married a long time now, and that's part of the gig, and so for our entire lives together, he's been on the road. And
Hmm.
so it's been really, really great to sort of carve out my own niche for this now and to say, "Okay,
Okay.
it's my turn. I'm gonna go." We've traveled extensively as a family. We've, traveled with our son together and then solo trips as well, like I've discussed with you already. But,
Hmm.
there's something really, really great about getting out there on your own. As a solo woman traveler,
Hmm.
there's something really empowering about it, and it makes you realize that you are more than capable of handling just about anything life throws at you when you're on the road by yourself. So, been
Sure.
fortunate to travel in a whole lot of different ways.
Okay, I love it. When I was on cruise, the Wilderness Discoverer, give a shout out to this the ship. It's wonderful. There was a woman on the boat. She was celebrating her birthday, and she was solo, as
Mhm.
was I. And it I had not really realized there's a huge niche of female solo travelers out there. And is that as big a niche that I think there is? Because now that it came to my consciousness, it seems like I'm seeing it everywhere, whether it's Facebook or Instagram, these organizations that's who they're catering to.
Absolutely. I've written extensively about this actually.
Okay.
I mean, the incidence of women who are getting out there either in groups or on their own are through the roof. And the spending power
Mhm,
of professional women who want to get out there on their own is also through the roof. And I think you're seeing more cruise operators, tour operators understanding that. That's why you see a lot of cruise lines dropping their single supplement.
mhm,
They realize that women like me have a lot of discretionary income. They're willing to spend it and they're getting out there. Because here's the thing, Howard. I mean, look, moms, women, we've got a lot going on. We're caring for aging parents. We might be caring for children. We're tending our careers. We're
Mhm.
dealing with finances. We're home engineers, right? We're
Mhm.
taking care of all the stuff. And gosh, it feels good to just go off by yourself and have a break.
Mhm.
So I think that's why you're seeing women saying, yeah, you all stay home. I'm going to head out. And it doesn't have to be for an extended period of time. It could be for a long weekend. It could be for a night staycation. But
Right.
I mean, that rejuvenation factor is enormous. And I think you're seeing more and more tour operators and vacation operators realizing that it's a huge market for them.
Okay. I'm curious what you or perhaps what you're hearing from other solo travelers is how it's impacted their lives.
Oh, I mean, a bunch of my girlfriends also solo travel. And it's just the fact that again, you realize you're capable in ways you didn't even know. Especially with international travel. I was in Croatia, gosh, last October, 2 Octobers ago, on my own and Split, and
Mm.
just think I don't speak Croatian, but you know what? I'm gonna go have my coffee on my own. I'm going to go check out this restaurant. I'm going to go have a fabulous meal by the sea. Because the thing about it is, the only person you're responsible for is yourself.
Mhm.
And that's such a freeing thing. I highly recommend if any women are out there on the fence thinking about doing it, just go for it. Get out there.
Are there sites that you would recommend or website or a magazine somewhere that you would recommend for them to be, or just is Google your friend just to start to explore what's out there, what's available?
Yeah, I would just say Google it. There are a ton of different tour operators that cater to female solo travelers. It's just about finding the one that's right for you and then finding the
Okay.
destinations that suit. So, yeah, I would just get out there and start exploring
Okay.
online first and then take that show on the road.
I love it. I'm curious, and now that you've had these years of experience being out there, yeah, working the stories, meeting people, and you kind of alluded to this individual in Colombia who's trying to work to repatriate artifacts. What
Mhm.
are some of the other kind of notable connections that you've made while you've been traveling?
Oh gosh, the best stories kind of fall into your lap and
Yeah.
you don't expect to find them and somehow they're just there. I was on Holland America's 150th anniversary cruise, which was
Mhm.
amazing, but I was with them in Amsterdam, Rotterdam, and then we sailed the North Sea, and so I was fortunate to go to Denmark. And I was
Mm.
sitting, in Copenhagen's Tivoli Gardens, the famous amusement park that Walt Disney drew inspiration from for his park. Sitting there having some tinned fish as one does in Denmark, and just sort of taking in the sights, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I hear a gospel choir start to sing.
Mm.
And they're singing in English, and they're singing "Stand By Me." And I looked around the corners of the main stage, and sure enough, there is this full-up gospel choir, all Danish, singing in English and singing, like, the old gospel standards, and I went, "What the hell is going on here?" Turns out there is an enormous gospel tradition in Denmark, and for reasons you can check out on Fodors, you can check out my website, you can read all about it, but there is a huge gospel tradition in Denmark. I was able to track down a pastor from America who's currently ministering in Denmark. He told me all about it. It was his, seminary thesis, and then
Mhm.
tracked down a few other people who explained it to me, but I couldn't believe what I was seeing, I couldn't believe what I was hearing, and I went, "Hold the phone, what is this?" And then got to go home and write all about it.
I love it. I love it. When you're traveling, could be anywhere. Is there a absolute must do that Erica has to do? Before you answer that, for me, it's a coffee shop.
Mhm.
I love my coffee. It's a farmer's market. Just being able to buy fresh produce from a farmer's market. What are some of your must dos when you're out there on location?
That's such a great question. I am an enormous culture vulture.
Yeah,
So get me to the best, biggest, most comprehensive museum that that place has,
yeah.
right? Also, if at all possible, I love hiring a local tour guide
Hmm.
and just having one-on-one time. I swear to God, it's the best money you're going to spend on vacation. Hire a local guide who will take you everywhere because you see the city through their eyes. You see the city through the eyes of a local. It's the best money you'll spend. And then third, I would just say, I tend to find the restaurant with the longest line and queue up.
Right.
That's how you know there's gonna be some good food there. And don't even ask what it is. Just go.
Just go, just go.
Just
I
go, eat
love
what you're served, and enjoy.
I love it. What's been the most I mean, we're you and I are Midwesterners. You're
Uh-huh.
in St. Louis. I was Detroit and Chicago. What is the most out there dish that you have experienced?
Oh, I would have to say it was probably in Xi'an, China.
Mm,
Again, I took the advice I just offered your listeners, and I
yeah.
got into the food stall with the longest line and got some noodles, and I have no idea to this day what was in them. I did not
Okay.
ask. Just got out yeah, yeah, didn't ask.
Okay.
I would also say, dumplings also in Xi'an. Just bring me all
Okay.
the dumplings, I don't need to know what's in them.
I love that. I love that. Where else in this world? Because I mean, the world is for you. It is very small, but just given the amount of traveling you've done, but in that juxtaposition of people who will never venture out of their own state, I don't get that. But where else do you want to go to? Maybe you've been there. It's like, God, I want to go back, or this is on my list. Where are those places?
Okay, I wanna back up just a second. Let's put a pin in the destinations. I wanna pick up on something that you just said about
Okay.
people who don't leave their own state.
Yeah.
I think that gosh, and that's I don't get that either, except to say that I think people are just sort of afraid to experience new things, right? It's a
Yeah.
basic human emotion. We're afraid of what we don't know. And that's part of what makes travel so liberating and freeing
Hmm.
to me is that I'm okay admitting what I don't know.
Right.
Please teach me. Tell me who you are. Tell me about why you do things the way that you do.
Hmm.
Share this place with me. And that takes a bit of vulnerability, doesn't it?
Hmm. Hmm.
Because you're admitting, here's what I don't know. And it's really easy to be afraid of what we don't know, but you just got to embrace it. And so gosh, if I was president of the United States, I would make, if I
You
was,
probably should be, by the way, but that's a whole other.
if
No
I wasn't
politics.
no, I've told people this before. If I was president, I would make it mandatory that every high school sophomore or junior takes an international trip.
Mhm.
They must leave. You
Mhm.
have to go. You have to go see that this world is big and it's beautiful and that we are more alike than we are different.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. You're going to ask me about destinations.
Yeah. Where is the place that you've been there, but my God, I cannot wait to go back, or perhaps you have yet to visit and get that stamp on the passport? Where do you wanna go?
Gosh, you know what? I would love to go back to India. I've
Uh,
been fortunate to I've gone twice. I've been to Delhi and I've been to Mumbai, and I would really love to go back to Rajasthan. I would
uh,
love to go see the pink granite and the palaces and just it's such a I've never been to a more vibrant, colorful country, and I would really, really love to go back sooner rather than later. I've had some pinch me moments there,
mhm,
seeing the Taj Mahal in person, putting my hand on that marble.
mm.
It was just a pinch me, "Oh my god, I can't believe I'm here" moment, and I would really, really love to go back to India. As far as places I haven't been and I'm dying to go, Antarctica is definitely on the list. Again, we talk about outdoors, and I know I've talked about sort of doing it on my own terms. That would be a place where I would stretch, and I would gladly, gladly go, and I would be cold and have
You
a
know,
runny nose and
I
do
would
all the things.
gladly. Up in, the glaciers in Alaska, the colors of those glaciers was just unbelievable. I mean, just I've never seen colors exactly like that, and I can only imagine what Antarctica and those glaciers look like, and they're probably hundreds of feet taller and different shapes. Because, but that would be a pretty cool excursion, and I have every confidence that you're gonna be making that happen as well. This wasn't gonna be a question, but, oh, what the heck. Is there a place, some travel that maybe kinda really stretched your comfort zone?
Mm. I'd have to say China. China was as a journalist, we take certain things for granted here in the United States. We
Mhm.
take our freedom of the press for granted. We take our
Yeah.
First Amendment rights for granted. And when you get to China and you check into your hotel room and there's a card on the bed listing all sorts of internet sites that you were prohibited from visiting,
Mm,
it kind of stops you a little bit. The other thing about going to Asia is the jet lag is real and it takes a little bit to get over. And so I remember just being up at 3 a.m. in Beijing, not able to sleep and just walking the streets and feeling very, very, very other. China was a challenging place for me. I did quite a bit of solo travel there as well, and
okay.
yeah, it was a challenge. I'm glad I went. I'm glad I saw the fabulous things I did. I got to walk stretches of the wall. I saw the terracotta warriors in Xi'an.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I would not put it really high on my places I need to go back to tomorrow.
Okay. Now that you're sending your son off to college and he's mom, dad, I'm good. You don't need to visit. And you suddenly say to your husband, because he's like, God, I'm done with this career. Where would you two move to?
Oh, gosh, what a great question. Um, I we would love to go to London. London's
Uh-huh.
such a terrific city.
I love London.
I mean, we took a ridiculous holiday trip to London for 3 days. We left
Mhm.
St. Louis in the middle of a snowstorm, and we spent Christmas in London, and it was
Yeah.
such a magical time. I would love London. We lived in New Orleans for a time right after college, and New Orleans is a really special place too, very
Mhm.
dear to our hearts. I could see us going there.
Mhm.
I would say those 2 places, and he's from Colorado, so I could see him wanting a place somewhere up in the mountains.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Before we head out today, and actually, I'm not going to do this yet because I want to throw my softball at you. Um, the work of journalists. I mean, having the education and the exposure to traditional journalism and making that shift away from whether it's television, whether it's radio, uh, and into the travel sphere. Is this still a industry or a profession that if someone were to come up to you, a student at the university come up to you, is this the right profession to be in? What would your response be given
Oh,
the
yeah.
challenges that we have these days?
God, we need good journalists more than ever in this world.
Yeah.
And if somebody thinks they've got the chops and the toughness and the moral fortitude to do this work, by God, please go do it. Know it's
Hmm.
going to be difficult. Know that your career might be on the line. You might be laid off. You're not going to get rich doing this either.
Hmm. Hmm.
But gosh, when I think about the bedrocks of our society and the way our government's set up, we need good journalists more than ever. And good journalists provide something that AI never, ever will.
Okay. Okay.
And
Fair enough.
I should also point out too, I'm really fortunate. Several of the outlets that I work with, I've signed contracts saying that the content I provide for them is 100% my own, that I will not rely on AI or Chat GPT or any of the rest of that stuff. They are only interested in human produced content. And I'm so grateful for that, that there are outlets out there that will not tolerate that sort of thing.
Okay. That's good to know. And I had not known that as well. That's very good to know. Before we head out, Erica, there's two features that we have with our podcast. One is called the aha moment, and you've in some ways you've alluded to some of this, throughout our conversation today. But as you look back on your career and you say, "Oh wow, I get to do this," or "This was special,"
Mhm.
what would be your aha moment that you'd like to share with our listeners?
I think that it's really easy to fall into imposter syndrome sometimes doing this line of work, right? We're so lucky to be doing it. We've had all these pinch me moments. We're out on the road telling these stories. And um, I try not to ever forget that I'm I'm being entrusted with other people's stories and I better do a damn good job. I recently put together a story for Fodors about Hopewell ceremonial earthworks. So it's the
Mm.
US's newest UNESCO World Heritage Site. And it's up in Ohio. It's an incredible spot. And I had the privilege of speaking to one of the indigenous chiefs who worked on the project. People don't realize to get a UNESCO World Heritage Site, it's a process that can take years. And
Mm.
it took the people at Hopewell 15 years from the time they started their application until they got their designation.
Oh, wow.
Long haul. There's so much that goes into it. And so I was able to talk with this woman, Chief Glenna Wallace, who's a really special woman who was there the entire time for the entire
Mhm.
process. And she shared her story with me. And to be able to, when my story posted, you always have that moment where you send it to the people you've talked to and you just pray they like it, right? And
Mhm.
I got the loveliest note back from her, and it meant so much because she said, "I entrusted you with this, and thank you so much. You did a beautiful job." And just to have those moments, to have that validation from the people that are trusting you to tell their stories, that's an aha for sure.
I love that. And thank you for gifting that to our listeners. Before we head out again, any final insight that you would like to share with our listeners, whether it's a quote, a book, philosophy that take this is my gift to you and run with us.
Okay, so I love to travel, as we've been talking for the past 45 minutes about it,
Okay.
but it can be hard. It stretches you. It can tax you emotionally and physically. And so the one thing I never leave home without, obviously, is my phone, but my
Mm.
Calm app is on my phone. I'm a
Okay.
big believer in mindfulness practice and meditation. I know that sounds a little bit outside the box, but really, when you're feeling overwhelmed by travel, just being able to take a couple breaths, to know how to get into the mindful zone, to give your brain a break. It makes a big difference. So, I would just say, mind your mindfulness when you're on the road. And if you need help doing that, the Calm app is a terrific tool.
I love it. It's dawns on me another question is, and I had mentioned I love coffee and I especially love early morning. Nobody is up. I'm
Mhm.
outside, have my cup of coffee, preferably in a glass mug because I like to see good coffee.
There you go.
Uh, where have you really had that opportunity to practice your mindfulness and that meditation? It's like, this is like, you can't get any better than this. Like,
Mhm.
what location?
The Taj Mahal.
I had a feeling you were going to share that. I had a feeling.
But I mean, again, just getting swept away by the emotions of actually being there
Mhm.
and then wanting to stay fully present in the moment. Just
Yeah.
knowing take 3 deep breaths and know that you're here right now in this place and really stand back and appreciate that.
I love it. And you remind me of a story. Should I ever be on someone else's podcast about something just like that? And I'm not gonna, I have to do a better job of not sharing my stories when I'm interviewing my guest. But
Oh, I love it.
you,
I love it.
and really just like, okay, I know what mine is. Before we head out now, if our listeners would like to read some of your stories, like, for example, the Hopewell Ceremonial Earthworks, where are the locations that they can find your stories and learn more about your writing?
Thanks so much for asking that, Howard. So my website is www.adventureswitherica.com. And I'm also on IG a whole lot. So just find me there or find me on my website.
Fantastic. Well, we will provide those backlinks to the website and to your Instagram site. And I think I may have already followed you. If not, I will do that right after this call. But Erica, it's been an absolute pleasure to meet you. I appreciate David McIlvaney. That's our mutual friend. David has been on my podcast twice now, and always good to catch up with him. And I'm so glad he introduced us and suggested that, I interview you. It's been a pleasure getting to know you, and I'm like, if you need somebody to carry your bags, I'm your guy, okay?
At any time. Come on the road with me. It'd be fun. Such a pleasure being with you today. Thanks so much for the great conversation.
Fantastic. Listen, stay in the line. We're gonna do a final, close, and then you and I can have that chat, final chat.
Great.
Thank you. I'm gonna do that one more time. 3, 2, 1. Erica, again, it's been a pleasure. Stay in the line. We're gonna do a quick close, and then you and I can have a final chat, okay?
Sounds good.
All right, folks, we have just been chatting with Erika Ebsworth-Goold, freelance travel writer. And I'm telling you, if you don't have a reason to walk out that door with your passport, well, maybe you don't even need your passport. Just go to Ohio to visit the Hopewell Ceremonial Earthworks, or go down to New Orleans. I mean, New Orleans for me, by the way, at Royale and Front Street, there were two women that would play the electric guitar and electric violin. Whenever I go to New Orleans, that's the first place I go at in the evening because I want to hear them play. But my God, walk out that door and go have an adventure, experience being in the moment. And whether it's the sights, the smell, the sounds, the food, but just take advantage of this really big, beautiful world that we are in. Yes, we have our troubles, but we have to get out there and explore and meet people and hear their stories. I hope you enjoyed today's episode with Erika. I'm very inspired by it. I'm thinking now even more inspired just to get out there and do some more location podcasting. Do visit Erika's websites, okay? The adventureswitherica.com, that's her website, and also her Instagram page as well. We'll provide backlinks to both. As for us, you can find this episode on our website, outdooradventureseries.com. We also have our Facebook and LinkedIn pages, Outdoor Adventure Series. We're on YouTube. And of course, wherever you listen to your podcast, you will be able to find us just by searching Outdoor Adventure Series. And if you're on Spotify or Apple, we would love for you to comment and let us know what you think about our episodes, especially ones like today with Erika. Okay, folks, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, go out there, have a phenomenal day, and we look forward to having you join us on a future episode of the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. Take care.